feel things. You might feel a little chill or a little tingle. Your intuitive knowing guides you. And sometimes you know when you are cranky or hungry, hangry, or as Troy knows, on a long road trip together, or putting together this beautiful book with two creatives working together, working together on this collaborative idea. And at times you might need to just walk to the other room and say, let's take a break for a moment. But what happens when you work together is you get your egos in the way, and then you realize, what is the divine purpose? What is the divine expression on the other side of this immediate story so we can see what spirit will create? And I'll say more about that later, but that's how the book came to be birthed. So think about it when you are in your prayer time, when you are in that time where you resonate, when you have resonance with the divine, where are you? What gives you that? For me, it's nature, especially. It's times in the woods, near a lake, in the forest. I got to tell you, one of the times I felt it, in a lot of churches that I visit, I feel it. But when I was the interim minister here, before I ever came to Unity on Greenville, Sandra let me in that very first week. And I said, if you don't mind, I just want to go into the chapel by myself. This was like a Friday, maybe, or a Saturday. And I felt it coming in here, in this sanctuary. You will know that feeling here at Unity on Greenville? Absolutely. There's a vibration of unity for over 80 years, but there's also the 100-year story within this building that there's been a prayer consciousness that develops and lives here. It's a wonderful place to be. Our faith is something that we often talk about, we often know stories about, but our faith really is written in unity, is really about the declaration, the proclaiming, the claiming that it is outworking all the time, even when we can't see it. For friends, for family members, for people that have a diagnosis or a storyline that is earth shattering, or for me, the beginning of 2023 when my father made his sudden transition. It stops us in our tracks and we go into the feeling and the sense consciousness. And of course, we have to do that. But then we need to also see that on the other side of this story, this too shall pass, light persists. There will be brilliance and glory and beauty on the other side of whatever it is, because we all have those hard times. I want to thank this community, the prayer chaplains, for the prayers. Shortly after I left here, Christmas season went by, January 2023. My dad wasn't experiencing anything out of the ordinary. He just felt bad one day and made his transition the next. And that for me was that sudden impact of grief, unexpected grief. We had a beautiful Christmas and then gone. And I share that with you that way because it sent me into 2023. That was January, the first week of 2023, into this re examining period, as grief will often do. Now, it wasn't foreign to me because my mom and my only two siblings, and I probably shared that with this group, made their transition years earlier in 43 months back to back. So I dove into grief and I knew grief. As a minister, that was my way in. I was a pastoral grief workshop counselor. I know grief. I've studied the theory. I know the heart of it. Yet here is the false statement. Dad makes his transition, and immediately I was in the shock, but I thought, okay, I know how to do this. No, you don't. You all know what I mean. It's uniquely different with each experience and each storyline. While I can understand it and while we can relate to the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, we don't really know that personal story. It's only yours, it's uniquely yours. So I navigated that, and Troy and I navigated that story. And I did one of those things that I always tell people in workshops and when I work with grief groups. I say, don't make any big decisions during your early stages of grief. Yet we sold our house and we relocated. I did not follow my advice, but it seemed to be easier to navigate that storyline, being that Dad's house was at a distance and handling the business part and all the things that you have to do, rather than commuting so much, but to process the grief, but also process the stuff. In 86 years, I'll just give a little bit about my dad. In 86 years, he kept everything from his very first grade of school to present. Well organized, well detailed. That's a lot of stuff, though. Not that I wasn't unfamiliar with it, but he archived and wrote notes on so many things. Dad was, I'll put it to you this way, an engineering mind. He was one of the first people to create mobile, which was Mobile Exxon now. And he built the plants, the engineering aspect of it, all by handwritten notes. The most beautiful, meticulous handwriting, but he organized and instructed the building. He kept all those building plans too. Now, that's a wonderful thing. But also growing up with a father that everything was an instruction manual was kind of a different thing because post-it notes, he was probably the biggest investor in post-it notes, I would say. They were on everything for every reason and what cabinets to close and what doors to leave open and what light switches and what wattage of bulb goes in what fixture, what remote goes to what because there's at least 11. So this I know about my father, and I know very proud of me, and we were very close, and we had regular quarterly and annual meetings about if something were to happen to me, here's the book and here's the details, right down to it. And then he'd edit and change it, we'd go through it again. So I'm in this sudden stage of dad's made his transition. I'm like, the reality of all this prep that he did has occurred. And walking into his house, not an unfamiliar place, yet he was no longer there. And you all know that feeling of, whoa, this reality is there. And so this talk today is really about paying attention to the times between, because there's the time of the storyline that it begins, whatever that is in your life. A door has closed, a story has ended, a community has changed, an era is gone. And we want to stay in that because that's where our loved ones or that's where that story lives. Yet we know from that story, we have to turn around and not continue to try to go through that door and make it happen again because it's complete. What we have to do is turn around and see the vast horizon before us. But in those moments, in that time between, there's this vast territory. I call it the threshold of something new. So I'm standing in my father's house, and what I always teach, and you've probably heard in a talk here before, I always teach that there is a vast curriculum that is giving us information, but perhaps we are too much in our grief, or we're hurting, or we're struggling with the strategy or what to do, or the instruction manuals, but we're not stepping back and being the observer in the story to say, what is here for me to learn and grow through? That began my year. In that moment, I'm standing in Dad's living room, and I thought, I need to find a place to sit with the papers and things, but I need to just sit and process. So there's his chair where he always sat, and there's the 11 remote controls that probably didn't go to most things, but he kept them just in case. But right next to his chair where his coffee cup would sit was a napkin. And the napkin said, I am so proud of my son, Doug. Very awe, right? But here's the thing. It's the hidden teacher in the story because I knew this. Dad wrote it. Every book, every story I would pick up, he'd say, and Doug, and this, and I'm very proud of you. You know what to do on. But what's interesting is it on a napkin, it had to be moments or hours before this thought came to mind. He took a pen, put it on a napkin right by his chair. Was he watching a TV show? Was he listening to a story? Had he just heard a song? What brought that about? But see, that was that messenger in that moment for me because I was open to seeing how did I need to be guided. And it took me from the shock to going, oh, Dad's voice. Yeah, I know what to do. You're proud of me. I move forward from here. I continue to navigate this chaotic storyline, but yet one that would navigate with ease and grace. And it did at times. Perhaps we all can agree that through our times of struggle, despair, and I say this to faith-based communities, to our churches a lot that I speak to, that they're going through times of transition. Unity on Greenville is going through times of transition. that there is this space between. Sometimes people say, well, it's between ministers. Of course, that happens. But it's the rich, rich time to open our eyes and our hearts and see, but right now is where here we are. What's happening now? Not waiting for something to come, but exploring and celebrating what's here right now. And I believe it is all about our gratitude practice. Can we find gratitude and thankfulness in all things? Sometimes it's hard during those heavy stories. The Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, said, having an attitude of gratitude. Think of this. Having an attitude of gratitude announces the realization that we are in heaven. So if I'm practicing and announcing my attitude of gratitude, regardless of the story I'm in, regardless of that narrative I'm navigating, finding a moment to be thankful for, we can always claim something. Perhaps it's the gift of breath. At any moment, we could stop and say, breath, exhale, I'm thankful. When we practice that through Charles Fillmore's wisdom, he says, we're not waiting for the after party. We're not waiting for the story down the road. We are claiming the realization that we are in heaven now. So our surroundings and our life begin to mirror that, no matter what we're navigating. We live, and we know this, we live in this creative tension, not only the human and the divine, but also the strategies, the stories. If you look at take a breath with me. If you look at the news or the storylines that are going on communities or our world right now, you could want to step back and go, oh my gosh, you could feel the anxiety, you could feel that rising up within you. And there's your lesson to go, oh, this is really triggering me, this is bothering me. Let me pause with the breath. If it's holding your hands out or lifting your hands up and say, but I am grateful because I know that light persists. That I know that even if it looks like a dark time or a dark storyline, light persists because I claim it and I know it and it is true. Do you agree? Do we practice it all the time? No. That's what Sunday messages are for, right, Denise? It's to do the reminder, to know that, yes, we affirm and we claim. And that's what I love about our unity storyline. We claim the truth that we know to be. This image is in the book. And this is an image of Doug and Dad at the lake at sunset. And this is where I grew up. This is where I took my first steps. This is a place that we go to often. This is where I spent most of the time writing the book. And Dad and I were there just the season before his transition. And all the years of him building that pier and all the fishing and all the working and all the things he did, it's so beautiful on a lake if you've ever watched the sunset when you can see it without buildings. And in this particular image, what you're seeing here is Dad's up at the porch. And I said, the sun's about to set because you can now see it on your phone. It's like 3 minutes away. And when it goes quick. He said, oh, I've seen sunsets my whole life. I said, have you really? Well, sure. I've been around here all the time. I said, but have you stopped in your busyness and watched the sun set? Well, sure. And I said, I don't think you have. Come with me. So we walked down to the edge of the water, and I said, stand here with me and watch this. Troy took the photo. And as it began to, and when it drops fast. If you look away, you're going to miss it. And there it is going right down beyond the trees. And it was like an 8-year-old child. He said, well, what's happening? I said, what do you mean what's happening? He said, well, that's awful quick. Does it always go that? What's happening in the world? Does it, how often has it been going that fast? I said, it always goes that fast. That's the same sunset since I took my first steps that I have enjoyed and admired. He said, son, I don't know that I've ever seen that before. And I said, told you. But it was a moment of tears. He looked at me, we walked back up, and he said, I really have never stopped to watch that. And I said, that's the message. Stop and see the sunset. Stop and look at the butterfly that passes by and spend a moment just to kind of watch it. These are our gifts, our teachers that are there every day, but we get so busy. People have said to me through my grief workshops over the years or coaching or one on one, Rev Doug, but how do you have this gratitude practice when I'm going through times when my prayers are empty, when things are heavy? This just happened to me. We feel the feelings, we observe what's going on, but we say, where is the hidden message? Where's the hidden teacher in this? Reveal that to me. And it may be like the crumpled napkin next to dad's chair. It could be a bumper sticker. It could be someone that you run into at the grocery store. It could be a billboard you see or a song that comes on that you haven't heard in forever. They're everywhere. And the path that we're on will sometimes detour us where we didn't know we were going to be. I didn't know we were going to sell our house and say, load up, we're moving to Beaumont, Texas. Would have never said that, would have never claimed that. That's where we are in Dad's house and experiencing all the feelings of being there in what I call the space of transition. Not the permanent dwelling, but it's the space of transition that this year needed to navigate. I believe that grief and love are interwoven, they're in our lives all the time. Just change, get a new computer and try to set it up. You're going to go through some grief. Change, a new app. Change is always there, and there's levels of grief that's always involved with it, but they're interwoven because we claim love, and it's because we are love in everything that we do. And I believe that gratitude is a constant practice, and all those storylines will lead us forward because light persists. I paused often, and I'm just going to share one piece of the book here in service. These images that are in here, I took all the images over the years, and oftentimes this one with the new bloom is in our garden. And oftentimes I would take the image, and the image would inspire me to a musing or something about God or the divine in life. And I want to read this one to you because this one connects to today's lesson. Life's twists and turns might be daunting, but they also offer us a chance to grow and discover strengths we never knew we had. Big changes can feel like an unwelcome guest, but I've noticed that even the most beautiful flowers bloom after the storm. In the anxiousness of big thunderstorms, the sun does come out again. Change can be scary. Let's face change with a mix of courage and tenderness. It's like learning to dance a new rhythm, or for some, perhaps learning to dance at all. It's filled with vulnerable moments, but remember, even the best dancers stumbled. Embrace the missteps and the awkward moments because they're part of our unique journey. When life feels crushing, take a moment to breathe and another to exhale. Each challenge we face is a stepping stone, not a roadblock. Vulnerability is a superpower, and your ability to bloom after the storm is wondrous. And with each page as a standalone, I asked you a question. And the question in this one is, what will you do today that's going to stretch your mind, but also your body? What I found is what gave me a lot of strength is not only sitting and admiring nature and listening to the stillness, but also walking. I walked a lot during this time. Walk and think and explore. And for the first time in my life, you know the old story about, does someone hear it if a tree falls in the forest? Lisa, I believe that was in our class in Discerning Your Purpose last year from Stephen Levine, Greg Lavoie. I was walking and there was a crash in the forest and a tree literally split and fell. And it's a powerful experience. And I exclaimed, I heard it. The last season for me was, I would have written the book and called it Shattered Yet Rising, but I thought it might be too heavy for people. They may not want to look at a book about being shattered. But it was the birth experience that Troy and I dove into as a creative person and as a writer, how we married this journey. Because I believe if I would have just put my photos with my words together, it would have been beautiful. And I believe if Troy would have taken the creative direction of just putting my words with photos, it would have been beautiful. But it's the joining together, it's the two or more, it's the combination of our strengths together as one that we birth a beautiful expression. And that's what you're seeing today. In John 15:12, it states this, my commandment is this, love each other as I have loved you. But I want to focus more in on the word command, the directive. The metaphysical meaning of commandments in the Revealing Word by Charles Fillmore is that it's a divine law, an orderly working out of divine principles and commandments to direct every thought, every word according to harmonious law, for the ultimate for is love for another. We would change the world, wouldn't we, Rachel, if we just love for one another like the song was. We are the world, we're coming together in love. Through our process, through this process that we work through, hidden teachers were everywhere. And I think taking the sabbatical and going to the woods was the powerful way to do it. But we don't all have that opportunity. So I invite you, anytime you have a chance to go to a park, listen to a bird, just become still. Take those moments, those healthy moments to connect with the divine, because light persists. Our co-founder of Unity, Myrtle Fillmore, who you all may remember, I bring her to every service. She said it this way. She said, we move from one room to another larger and lighter room. We're expanding. We're growing in consciousness. We are blooming. And I want to close today with sharing something I always shared with you before. Joining us online or here in the sanctuary, you matter. Do you remember me telling you that all the time? You matter. That each one of you are sacred. Your work here on the planet right now is sacred. What you're doing is sacred. Don't dismiss it. Know that it is sacred. And if you haven't heard it today, online, joining us later, right here in the sanctuary, if you haven't heard it today, hands over your hearts, eyes, you are loved. Yes? Even those of you that are asleep back there, you're loved. Just kidding. Bless you. Thank you for the invitation back. It's so good to be here again. Thank you. Okay.
You're broken down, tired, living life on the merry-go-round. You can't fight the fighter, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out and move. We're gonna move mountains and walk it out. Move mountains. Yeah, I will rise up, rise like the day, and I will rise up. I'll rise unafraid of I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I will rise up. I like the wave. I will rise up. In spite of the rain, I'll rise up. I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you. I do it for you. Yeah. When the silence isn't quiet, feels like it's getting hard to breathe. I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll put the world to its feet and move. Yeah. We're gonna move mountains, move mountains. We're gonna work it out. All right, rise like the day. We'll rise up. We'll be unafraid. We'll rise up. Then do it 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up high like the wave. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up. We'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, you, for you, yeah. God, all we need is hope. And for that, we have each other. Yeah, we have each other. We're gonna rise up, rise like the day. We'll rise up, rise unafraid. We'll rise up. We're gonna do it 1,000 times again. We'll rise up, high like the wave. We'll rise up, in spite of the ache. We'll rise up. We'll do it 1,000 times again. We're gonna rise up, rise like the day. We'll rise up, rise unafraid. We rise up and do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you. We'll rise up. Oh, we'll rise up. I feel we're gonna rise up. I know we're gonna rise up. A unity on Greenville.
Yes, Rachel. Rachel can touch the nuances of all our emotions, can't she? She can make us want to jump for joy and she can make us want to weep, right? It's amazing. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. Just so amazing. Um, Also, thank you for your message. And yes, yes. I loved how you shared with us how this book came together and how you all worked together. And just your being in nature and all that gift that gave to you. So that was lovely. I can't wait to read your book. So that being said, I want to say also, here at Unity, where you're looking for a new minister, something you said though, Doug, made me really appreciate the speakers that we're having in the interim. I mean, we've had some wonderful speakers who've given us great messages. And, so while we're struggling to find somebody to fill this space, we have been really blessed by those who are helping us out. So thank you for reminding us of that. Okay, so let's join together and say the new minister affirmation. We embrace with love joy, and harmony. A creative and dedicated spiritual leader who will bring positivity and connection with our community at Unity on Greenville. And we have a mission here at Unity on Greenville, so let's say this affirmation. With divine love as our foundation, we live unity spiritual principles. We awaken to truth. We affirm the innate goodness of all and our oneness with creation. So now we are going to join together, and please stand. Oh, no, not yet. Oh, okay. Let me do this first, and yeah. Sorry, just see if you were paying attention. Oh, yes, just seeing if you were paying attention. Please remember, if you would like to know more information about Unity on Greenville, to go to our website and hit the connect button. You can request a prayer, or you can find out what's happening every week, and you can see all the things up at the top that you can learn about our church here. We'd love for you to do that. Okay, so right now, Reverend Doug wants to come up and make an announcement before we do.
I think mine's on. It's on.
Okay.
We have a special opportunity, a special guest that's going to join us right after we do the peace song, the prayer for protection. A local Dallas photographer is in the back of the sanctuary, and it's been a while since we have gathered together. So I invite you, rather than to typically go out, come up here for an impromptu. Anyone that feels like they want to be in a photo, and we're going to gather right here, and he's going to take a few shots of us in this beautiful sanctuary that we can use how we want to. So
Wonderful.
when service is over, come this way. If you feel called to, we'll gather, and Gabe is in the back. Hey, Gabe, glad you're here. And we'll gather for a couple of shots. He's going to be with us for the book signing too. So also a local Dallas resident. Thank you, Gabe, for being here.
Thank you. Okay, please rise. Yes, there is peace on earth,
and know it begins with me. Yes, there is peace on earth, peace that was meant to be. With God, our Creator, united all are we. We walk with each other in perfect harmony. Yes, there is peace on earth, for this is the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. I take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Love is peace on earth, and I know it begins in me.
So yes, wonderful. Clap, yay. Yes, so now we will say the prayer for protection. After that, we'll have the pictures taken, and then we will go to the fellowship and the book signing, and then after that, we'll all go to the park. Okay, let's say the prayer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Group picture. Should I stay at the piano in the picture? Oh, okay. It's not.